He rejected her in front of the entire pack. Called her weak. Useless. A mistake. And she left, without saying a word. 3 weeks later. The Alpha King was on his knees, begging for her to come back. She didn't look like someone who could survive in a pack like his. Not at first glance. Not to them. When Rowan Vale first stepped past the iron gates of Blackridge territory, no one stopped what they were doing. No one bowed. No one cared. Because to the wolves of Blackridge, strength was obvious. It was loud. It was brutal. It was carved into muscle and scars and dominance that could be felt from across a field. And Rowan was none of those things. She walked quietly. Head slightly lowered. Hands empty. No weapons. No visible marks of rank. Just a small satchel slung across her shoulder and eyes that didn't quite belong in a place like this. Too observant. Too calm. Too still. A few wolves glanced her way. Then looked away just as quickly. Another one, someone muttered near the training grounds. She won't last a week. Rowan heard it. Of course she did. But she didn't react. Didn't flinch. Didn't even slow her pace. That was the first thing that made her different. Most newcomers tried too hard. Tried to prove themselves. Tried to survive the moment. Rowan. She simply existed. And high above the grounds. Someone was watching. The Alpha King of Blackridge didn't need to raise his voice to command attention. He didn't need to move. Didn't need to prove anything. His presence alone did that for him. Leander Draven stood at the edge of the overlook, arms folded behind his back, his gaze fixed on the lone figure crossing into his territory. Tall. Broad. Unmoving. Like something carved from stone rather than flesh. Another candidate, his beta said from behind him. Corvin Hale didn't bother hiding the skepticism in his voice. Doesn't look like much. Leander didn't respond immediately. His eyes remained on her. Tracking. Measuring. She won't survive, Corvin added. A pause. Then. Quietly. Leander spoke. Everyone survives, until they don't. His gaze narrowed slightly. Just enough to notice something off. She hadn't looked up once. Not at the pack. Not at the guards. Not at the dozens of eyes weighing her worth in silence. And yet. She wasn't afraid. That was unusual. But unusual didn't mean useful. And in Blackridge, usefulness was everything. Rowan was brought in as a trial. Not a warrior. Not a strategist. Not even a full member. A provisional healer. Temporary. Replaceable. Which meant no one bothered to learn her name. The first few days passed without incident. On the surface, she was given a small corner in the lower quarters. Away from the main pack. Away from importance. Assigned simple tasks. Basic treatments. Minor injuries. Nothing critical. Nothing that mattered. And still. She watched. Always watching. The way patrol routes shifted. The way tensions lingered between certain wolves. The way the air changed, just before something went wrong. She noticed things. Small things. Things no one else seemed to care about. And sometimes. She acted. Quietly. A hunter returned early one evening, clutching his side. Just a scratch, he insisted. Rowan said nothing. Just reached for his arm. And stopped. Her fingers hovered over the wound. Not touching. Just sensing. Not a scratch, she said softly. The hunter scoffed. Until he collapsed an hour later. Poison. Hidden. Spreading. By the time the others reacted, Rowan had already begun treatment. No panic. No hesitation. Just precision. The hunter lived. No one thanked her. Because in Blackridge, saving someone quietly didn't matter. What mattered was power you could see. Another time, a patrol nearly walked straight into an ambush. Rowan had spoken up. Once. They shouldn't go east tonight. That was all she said. No explanation. No justification. They ignored her. Of course they did. Until they returned hours later. Bloodied. Shaken. 3 missing. After that, they stopped letting her speak during briefings. She guesses, one of them said. Gets lucky. And Rowan never corrected them. Leander noticed. Not the details. Not the patterns. Just the results. Inconsistencies. Minor disruptions. Nothing worth his attention. Until the council meeting. It was supposed to be routine. A gathering of the strongest. The most trusted. Decisions that shaped the future of the pack. Rowan wasn't meant to be there. But one of the healers had fallen ill. And someone, somewhere, decided she would do a mistake. Or so they thought. The chamber fell quieter when she entered. Not silent. Not yet. But enough for eyes to shift. For whispers to begin. What is she doing here? Rowan didn't answer. Didn't look at them. She took the seat she was given. At the far end of the table. As far from the Alpha as possible. Or so she hoped. Because across the room, Leander Draven was already watching her. Unblinking. Unreadable. The meeting began. Reports. Conflicts. Territory threats. Voices rose. Clashed. Demanded dominance. And through it all, Rowan sat still. Listening. Until someone turned to her. You're the healer, a council member said. Speak. A pause. All eyes shifted. Rowan blinked. Once. Then slowly. She stood. The room waited. Judging. Expecting her to fail. And maybe. This time. She did. Because when she spoke, it wasn't what they wanted to hear. You're focusing on the wrong threat, she said quietly. A ripple of irritation. You weren't asked for opinions, another snapped. Rowan hesitated. Just for a second. Then. Something shifted in the room. A low growl. Leander leaned forward slightly. Finish, he said. One word. Commanding. Rowan's pulse flickered. But her voice didn't. The danger isn't outside your borders, she said. It's already inside. Silence. Then. Laughter. Cold. Sharp. Dismissive. Enough, someone muttered. She's wasting time. Leander didn't laugh. But he didn't defend her either. He just watched. Measuring. Waiting. And when she failed to prove it. When she couldn't give them something tangible. Something immediate. Something strong. He made his decision. Without hesitation. Without emotion. She's weak. The words landed like a blade. The room stilled. She has no place here. No anger. No shouting. Just finality. Judgment. Absolute. Every eye turned to Rowan. Waiting. For a reaction. For defiance. For desperation. For tears. Anything. But Rowan did none of it. She didn't argue. Didn't plead. Didn't even look at him. She simply nodded. Once. As if accepting something she had already known. Then she turned. And walked. No rush. No hesitation. Step by step. Through the silent chamber. Past the council. Past the guards. Past the Alpha King who had just cast her aside like she was nothing. And no one stopped her. Because to them, she already didn't matter. The doors closed behind her. And just like that, Rowan Vale was gone. Silence lingered. Then, the room breathed again. The meeting resumed. As if nothing had happened. As if she had never been there. But something had changed. Not in the room. Not yet. Somewhere deeper. Something subtle. Something none of them could see. Leander leaned back in his chair. Unbothered. Certain. Decision made. Mistake corrected. Or so he thought. Because far beyond the walls of Blackridge, Rowan didn't stop walking. Didn't look back. Didn't hesitate. And whatever she carried with her, whatever quiet, unseen thing had followed her into that territory, left with her. She didn't beg. She didn't cry. She just walked away. And that was the moment everything started to go wrong. At first, nothing changed. That was the lie they told themselves. Blackridge continued as it always had. The patrols still ran at dawn. The training ground still echoed with bone-cracking impact and low, territorial growls. The council still met. Still argued. Still decided the fate of everyone beneath them. And Rowan Vale was never mentioned again. Because in Blackridge, what was weak was forgotten. Or at least, that was how it was supposed to work. But something, small at first, began to shift. It wasn't obvious. Not immediately. Just subtle inconsistencies. A hunter returning empty-handed. Once. Then again. Then a third time. Prey patterns shifted, they said. Nothing unusual. But the tone had changed. Less certain. Less controlled. A patrol came back late. No injuries. No explanation. Just, quiet. Too quiet. They took a different route, someone muttered. Lost track of time. But no one could quite explain why. The air itself felt different. Heavier. Like something unseen had settled over the territory. Pressing in. Watching. Waiting. And beneath it all, a low, constant tension began to hum. Not loud enough to alarm. But impossible to ignore. Leander noticed. Of course he did. He noticed everything that threatened control. And this slow unraveling, didn't fit. But it wasn't enough. Not yet. So he dismissed it. Adjust, he ordered. Adapt. Because in his world, problems were solved through force. And force had never failed him before. Until it did. The first real break came during a routine hunt. Simple. Controlled. Predictable. Or it should have been. The team moved through the eastern ridge just before dusk. Tracking a herd they had hunted dozens of times before. Nothing new. Nothing dangerous. And yet, something was wrong. They felt it. Too late. The wind shifted. The herd scattered. Not away. But toward something. A trap. The ground beneath one of them gave way. A hidden drop. Sharp rocks below. By the time they pulled him out, he wasn't breathing. The news reached the pack before nightfall. Silence followed. Heavy. Uncomfortable. An accident, someone said. But it didn't feel like one. Leander stood at the edge of the training grounds when Corvin approached. One dead, the beta said. A pause. Unusual terrain shift. Leander's jaw tightened slightly. Then map it better, he replied. Cold. Immediate. Final. Corvin hesitated. Just for a second. She warned about the east, he said quietly. Leander's gaze snapped to him. Sharp. Coincidence, Leander said. But the word didn't land as cleanly as it should have. Because somewhere, in the back of his mind, something didn't sit right. He ignored it. Because doubt was weakness. And he did not allow weakness. Until the second failure. This one. They couldn't explain away. It started at the border. A breach. Not large. Not obvious. But precise. Deliberate. Someone had crossed into Blackridge territory. Without being detected. That alone was impossible. Or it had been. By the time they realized, it was already too late. 2 guards down. No signs of struggle. No scent trail. Nothing. The council chamber filled faster than usual. Tension thick. Voices sharp. How did this happen? No one gets past our perimeter. They didn't before, someone corrected. That word hung in the air. Before. Leander stood at the head of the table. Silent. Listening. Measuring. And for the first time, something beneath his control felt uncertain. She used to monitor the shifts, a voice said. Soft. Careful. All eyes turned. It was one of the lower-ranked sentinels. She noticed things before they happened, he added. A ripple of discomfort. Guessing, someone snapped. Luck. But the word sounded weaker now. Less convincing. Corvin didn't speak. Not yet. He simply watched the alpha. Waiting. And Leander said nothing. Because for the first time, he didn't have an answer. That night, he didn't sleep. Not fully. Not deeply. Because something kept circling back. Uninvited. Unwelcome. Her voice. You're focusing on the wrong threat. He pushed it away. Again. And again. Until he couldn't. The third break was the one that shattered everything. It wasn't subtle. It wasn't quiet. It was chaos. The attack came just before dawn. Fast. Violent. Too precise to be random. The outer defenses fell within minutes. Warriors scrambled. Orders clashed. And for the first time in years, Blackridge wasn't prepared. Leander shifted mid-command. Bones cracking. Power surging. But even that felt unstable. Wild. Uncontrolled. The enemy pushed deeper. Not strong enough to win. But dangerous enough to expose weakness. By the time it ended, the damage was done. More injured. More lost. And something worse. Something far more dangerous. Had taken root. Doubt. The council didn't wait this time. They gathered immediately. No formalities. No patience. What are we missing? Someone demanded. Why are we failing? Silence. Then Corvin stepped forward. Slowly. Deliberately. And finally. He spoke. She wasn't weak. The room froze. Leander didn't move. Didn't react. But something, deep beneath the surface, shifted. She was stabilizing us, Corvin continued. Patterns. Movements. Reactions. She saw things before they happened. A pause. Then. Quieter. More dangerous. You didn't see it. The words landed. Heavy. Irreversible. Leander's gaze darkened. Not with anger. With something else. Something unfamiliar. Doubt. The truth didn't come all at once. It unfolded. Piece by piece. Every inconsistency. Every coincidence. Every moment they dismissed. All of it. Leading back to one thing. Her. Rowan Vale hadn't been weak. She had been. Essential. A rare balance. Not strength in the way they understood it. But something deeper. Quieter. More dangerous. An anchor. She regulated what others couldn't. Saw what others missed. Adjusted what others broke. And they had sent her away. The realization hit. Harder than any physical blow. Leander stood alone when it finally settled. No counsel. No witnesses. Just the weight of it. His decision. His words. She has no place here. Now. Echoing back at him. Like a mistake he couldn't undo. Outside. The pack was unraveling. Inside. So was he. Because control was slipping. And for the first time, he didn't know how to stop it. Find her. The order came without hesitation. But the damage was already done. She was gone. No trail. No trace. Like she had never existed. Days passed. Then more. Search parties returned empty. Again. And again. She doesn't want to be found, Corvin said quietly. Leander didn't respond. Because he already knew. Reports came in from beyond the territory. Whispers. Of a healer. A woman. Fixing things no one else could. Places stabilizing. Thriving. Without force. Without dominance. And every time he heard it, something tightened in his chest. She wasn't lost. She had moved on. And Blackridge was paying the price. The breaking point came without warning. Leander collapsed mid-shift. Power surging out of control. Too much. Too unstable. The kind of loss an alpha couldn't afford. The pack froze. Because if he fell, everything fell. And in that moment, clarity hit. Sharp. Unavoidable. He didn't need warriors. He didn't need strategy. He needed her. Not as weak. Not as expendable. But as something far more dangerous. Essential. He found her at the edge of another territory. Not hiding. Not running. Standing. Calm. Like she had always belonged there. She didn't look surprised to see him. Not even a little. For a moment. Neither of them spoke. Because everything had changed. He wasn't the one in control anymore. And she was no longer the one being judged. Leander stepped forward. Slower than he ever had before. Careful. Measured. Like approaching something that could break. Or walk away. I was wrong. The words came out rough. Unfamiliar. Heavy. Rowan said nothing. Just watched him. I need you. Another step closer. I was wrong, he repeated, quieter this time. Come back. Silence. Long. Unforgiving. And then. Rowan finally moved. Not toward him. But back. Just one step. She looked at him. Really looked at him. And for the first time. Leander Draven understood something he had never had to before. She was no longer his to command. The balance had shifted. Irreversibly. And whatever happened next would not be his decision.